We are hungry. We need money for food.
Papa, please.
Rain beat down as Judith and the children stood outside Base's shop, their clothes clinging to thin bodies. One child was missing. Michael lay in the government hospital, stomach empty, lips dry, waiting for food the doctor said she must eat to survive. Papa, just 200 naira. A kara and bread. Inside, Base sat alone, counting. Not coins. Not hope. 6.3 million Nigerian nairas. Money saved quietly for 20 years. Money resting while his children were not. He tied the bundle. He locked the door. He watched Judith and the children turn back into the rain. At the hospital, Michael cried without tears. The nurse whispered, "She needs food before the next injection." There was none. No akara. No pap. Only water and waiting. Mr. Princewell came with his own money. Money meant for his own family's rent. But even a teacher's sacrifice couldn't undo a father's neglect. By midnight, Michael's breathing slowed. By morning, the bed was lighter than before. Basie ran home, digging where he had buried his money, soil tearing under his nails. But the elders say, when a man feeds his wealth and starves his blood, the ground will eat first. And that was the day Basie learned, money can be buried and recovered, but a child cannot. Basie's fingers moved across the counter like a spider counting its prey. 20 naira notes. 50 naira notes. 100 naira notes. Each one smoothed flat, each corner aligned perfectly with the one beneath it. His thumb had calluses from this, from touching money more than he'd ever touched his children. The knock came soft at first, hesitant, like something that had learned to expect rejection. He didn't look up. The knock came again, harder now, desperate fingers against rotting wood. Rain drummed the zinc roof overhead, turning the shop into a tin drum of accusation. Through the window, shadows moved, small bodies pressed together for warmth that wouldn't come. Judith's voice leaked through the door crack, thin as paper. "Basie, please." His jaw tightened. That voice used to sing. Before marriage. Before hunger became the fourth wall of their house. Now it only begged, and he'd grown deaf to begging. The children outside. In the rain. He tied the final bundle with yellow rubber bands, each snap a punctuation mark. The stack joined the others in the wooden box beneath the counter, today's earnings sealed away from the mouths that needed them. His hands moved to close the lid, but something made him pause. One child wasn't crying outside. Michael wasn't crying because Michael couldn't cry anymore. Ward C, Bed 7. Government Hospital. 3 kilometers from her father's shop, but it might as well have been 3 continents. The 4 drip hanging beside her bed was half empty, feeding her body salt water when it screamed for sustenance. Her lips had cracked days ago, thin lines of dried blood mapping the geography of her thirst. The nurse passed by without stopping. She'd learned not to look too long at the ones whose families didn't come with food. Looking only made the shift longer, made the helplessness taste more bitter on her tongue. "Mama." Michael's voice was barely breath, a whisper that didn't travel past her own ears. But Judith wasn't there. Judith was standing in rain that felt like stones, watching her husband through a shop window, watching him choose paper over flesh. Again. Inside the shop, Basie finally looked up. His eyes found Judith's face in the glass, gaunt, pleading, already grieving something she hadn't lost yet. Their stares locked, and for a moment, something flickered behind his chest. A memory, perhaps, of when her eyes used to shine instead of beg. He looked away first. "Go home," he said to the locked door between them, his voice flat as dead earth. "There is no money." The lie tasted like rust in his mouth. Behind him, the wooden box sat fat with today's takings. Above him, on the highest shelf where dust gathered like abandoned prayers, a metal tin held what he'd been saving. Not spending. Not sharing. Just holding. As if naira notes could fill the hollow that kept growing in his chest, the one that widened every time his children's footsteps grew lighter, quieter, less. Judith's hand slid down the glass, leaving a wet streak like a tear. She turned into the rain, her children following, 3 shadows where there should have been 4. Mr. Princewell saw them from his window, for ghosts moving through the downpour, heading toward the hospital path. No, not 4. 3. He counted again, his chalk pausing mid-word on the blackboard. 3 children. Judith. No Michael. His stomach dropped like a stone into dark water. The classroom behind him buzzed with students copying notes they'd forget by tomorrow, but all he could see was Michael's empty desk in the second row. 4 days empty now. 4 days since she'd collapsed during morning assembly, her body folding like paper in the rain. He'd carried her himself that day, her weight so slight it made his arms ache with fury instead of strain. A child shouldn't feel like air. A child shouldn't have bones that pressed through skin like accusations. Sir, should we continue? A student's voice pulled at him, but his feet were already moving. The chalk clattered to the floor. His lesson plan abandoned. The school rules about leaving during class hours, forgotten. Some things mattered more than regulations, more than the 18,000 naira salary that barely survived past the 15th of each month. He grabbed his umbrella and ran. The hospital loomed ahead, its grey walls stained with mold and broken promises. Inside, the smell hit him first, disinfectant trying to mask decay, trying to cover the stench of a healthcare system that bled its patients dry before it healed them. Bed 7, Ward C, the receptionist said without looking up. She'd seen him before, this teacher who came for students whose parents wouldn't. His shoes squeaked against the cracked linoleum, each step echoing in the corridor like a countdown. Bed 7. Bed 7. The number burned in his mind. When he reached it, he stopped breathing. Michael lay so still the 4 drip seemed louder than her heartbeat. The nurse appeared beside him, her face carved from exhaustion and things she'd seen too many times. Are you family? I'm her teacher. The words felt inadequate, too small for what he needed them to mean. Then you should know, she glanced at Michael, then back at him, her voice dropping to a whisper that carried more weight than a shout. She needs food before the next injection. Real food. Her body can't process the medication on an empty stomach. We've been giving her glucose water, but it's not enough. Mr. Princewill's throat tightened. How long does she have? The nurse's silence was an answer he didn't want to hear. Where is her father? The question came out sharper than he intended, each word edged with something dangerous. The mother came yesterday. No food. No money. She said, the nurse's lips pressed together, holding back words that probably wouldn't help. She said her husband owns the provision shop on Market Road. The provision shop. Where shelves groaned under bags of rice and gari. Where tins of milk sat stacked like towers of mockery. Where Basie counted his naira notes while his daughter's body consumed itself. Mr. Princewill's hands became fists at his sides, knuckles white as bone. He'd taught Michael for 3 years. Watched her solve mathematics problems with fingers too thin to hold the pencil properly. Watched her share her lunch, when she had lunch, with classmates who had even less. A child who gave from emptiness while her father hoarded from fullness. How much? His voice came from somewhere deep, somewhere that remembered his own childhood hunger, his own father's choices. How much does she need? The bill is 15,000 naira. But food, just something, anything, maybe 500 naira would. He was already reaching for his wallet. His wallet felt light in his hands. Too light. Inside, 3,000 naira stared back at him, the remainder of a salary that was supposed to last another 2 weeks. Rent was due. His own children needed books. His wife had been stretching rice and salt for days, making meals from prayers and pond water. But Michael's breathing was so shallow he had to watch her chest to confirm she was still alive. He pulled out 2,000 naira, the note stamped from his pocket, wrinkled from being folded too many times around too little. Take this. Get her food. Akara, bread, pap, whatever her body can hold. The nurse's eyes widened. She knew what teachers earned. She knew what this money meant. Sir, your family. My family can eat tomorrow. His voice cracked on the word family, because somewhere in his mind, Michael had become family too. All his students had. Every hungry child in a classroom was a mirror of who he used to be, who he'd sworn no child will have to be again. She needs to eat today. The nurse took the money, her fingers trembling. I'll go now. The canteen is still open. She disappeared down the corridor, her footsteps quick, urgent, racing against a clock that had already run too long. Mr. Princewill moved closer to the bed, his hand hovering over Michael's forehead. Her skin burned cold, the kind of cold that came from a body shutting down, prioritizing heart over heat. "Your papa," he whispered, rage coating each word like poison. "Your papa will answer for this." Michael's eyelids fluttered. For a moment, just a breath of a moment, her lips moved. "Papa, coming." The hope in her voice was a knife between his ribs. He couldn't answer, because the truth would kill her faster than the hunger. The lie sat on his tongue, heavy as stone. "Yes," he finally said, the word scraping his throat raw. "Papa is coming." Michael's lips curved, not quite a smile, but close enough to break something inside him. Her eyes closed again, retreating back into whatever dream kept her alive, whatever fantasy painted her father as a man who would choose her over his precious naira notes. Mr. Princewill straightened, his decision forming like iron in fire. If Basie wouldn't come to his dying daughter, then the dying daughter's teacher would go to Basie. The rain had softened to a drizzle when he stepped outside, but the anger in his chest burned hotter than before. Market Road was a 15-minute walk. He made it in 8, his shoes slapping puddles, his umbrella forgotten in the hospital corridor. Basie's provision shop sat like a fat tick on the roadside, its windows glowing with lamplight, its shelves visible through the glass, abundance mocking absence. Mr. Princewill didn't knock. His palm hit the door so hard the frame rattled. Inside, Basie looked up, irritation flashing across his face before recognition settled in. The teacher. The one who always had opinions about other people's children, other people's choices. "We are closed," Basie said, not moving from his stool behind the counter. "Your daughter is dying." Mr. Princewill's voice was surgical, precise, cutting through the space between them. "Ward C, Bed 7. Government Hospital." Basie's hand paused over his account book, his pen hovering above numbers that suddenly seemed smaller than before. "Michael is sick. I know this. The hospital is taking care. The hospital is watching her starve." Each word landed like a fist. "Because you won't pay. Because you won't feed her." Basie's jaw tightened, his shoulders rising like a man preparing for battle. "You come to my shop to insult me." Basie's voice climbed an octave, his finger jabbing the air between them. "You, who doesn't know the weight of feeding a family? The burden of running a business. Burden." Mr. Princewill's laugh was blade-sharp, mirthless. "Your shelves are full. Your shop is stocked. Your daughter's stomach is empty. Easy for you to talk. You teach. You collect salary and go home. You don't know what it takes to. I just paid her hospital bill." The words dropped like grenades into the space between them. 15,000 naira. Plus food. 2,000 more. Basie's mouth opened, then closed. His pen slipped from his fingers, clattering against the counter. "You, what?" 17,000 naira. Mr. Princewill stepped closer, his shadow falling across Basie's precious account book. "That's more than half my salary. Money my own children needed. Money for rent I haven't paid. But I couldn't," his voice cracked, rage and grief tangling in his throat. "I couldn't watch her die while her father sat here counting." Basie's face shifted, something flickering behind his eyes. Shame, maybe, or anger at being shamed. His hand moved instinctively to the wooden box beneath the counter, then stopped. "You had no right. She is my child. My responsibility. Then act like it." The shout tore from Mr. Princewill's chest. Years of watching hungry students, years of choosing between his own children and other people's, years of rage at fathers who could but wouldn't, all of it erupting. "She called for you. Even now, dying, she believes you're coming. She still thinks her papa loves her more than his money." Basie stood abruptly, his stool scraping against concrete. "Get out. Look at me." Mr. Princewill's voice dropped to something dangerous, something final. "Look at me and tell me your money is worth more than her life." Basie's eyes met his for 3 seconds, 3 seconds that stretched like years, then slid away, finding refuge in the shop's dark corners where truth couldn't reach. "You don't understand. It's not that simple." "Then make me understand." Mr. Princewill planted both palms on the counter, leaning forward until Basie had nowhere to hide. "Explain how a man watches his child starve while his shop overflows. Teach me that mathematics. I have plans." Basie's voice turned defensive, smaller. This money, I'm building something. For their future. A bigger shop, maybe a house. What future? The question was a whip crack. Michael won't have a future if she dies tonight. She won't die. You're being dramatic. Children get sick, they recover. Her body is eating itself. Mr. Princewill's words were surgical, each one designed to cut. Her organs are shutting down. The nurse said maybe tonight, maybe tomorrow morning. But soon, Basie. Very soon, you'll have one less mouth to worry about feeding. Basie flinched like he'd been slapped, his hand gripping the counter edge until his knuckles bleached white. Don't say that. Don't you dare. Why not? It's what you wanted, isn't it? Mr. Princewill straightened, disgust replacing rage in his voice. Every time you said no to food, every time you locked this door while they begged outside, you were choosing this. You were choosing a future where Michael is a memory instead of a daughter. Get out. Basie's roar filled the shop, rattling tins on shelves, sending a bag of Gary tumbling to the floor. Get out of my shop. Out. Mr. Princewill didn't move. His eyes held Basis, refusing to grant him the escape of violence. I'll leave. But your conscience won't. He turned toward the door, each step deliberate, heavy with judgment. Behind him, Basis' breathing came fast and ragged, like a man drowning in air. Mr. Princewill's hand touched the door handle, then stopped. When I was 7, he said, not turning around, my father had money. Not much, but enough. Enough to buy medicine when my sister got malaria. But he was saving, always saving, for a piece of land he never bought. His voice went hollow, distant, traveling back to a grief that still had teeth. She died on a Tuesday. The land went to someone else by Friday. My father spent the next 20 years trying to dig up her grave, as if apologizing to bones could change anything. The silence that followed was thick, suffocating. You think you're different, Mr. Princewill continued, his knuckles white against the door. You think your plans matter, your reasons justify. But the ground doesn't care about your intentions, Basie. It only knows what you fed it. And right now, you're feeding it your daughter. He pulled the door open. Rain had started again, harder now, like the sky was weeping for all the fathers who chose wrong. When she dies, and she will die if you don't move, don't come to me for forgiveness. Don't come to her grave with tears and regrets. The dead don't accept apologies from men who let them starve. The door slammed behind him, the bell chiming once, a small, bright sound in the gathering dark. Basie stood frozen, his reflection staring back from the shop window. Behind him, shelves of food. Before him, the rain and the road that led to the hospital. Between them, a choice that was already made, already rotting, already too late. His legs finally moved, but not toward the door. Toward the wooden box beneath the counter. His hands shook as he lifted the lid. Today's earnings stared back, crisp notes, counted twice, bound with rubber bands that cut into the paper like shackles. He touched them, his fingers remembering their texture better than he remembered his daughter's face. When had he last looked at Michael? Really looked? Not past her toward the doorframe she stood in, not through her toward the expense she represented, but at her, at the way her eyes used to light up when he came home, back before hunger made her too tired for hope. The memory arrived unwanted, sharp as broken glass. Michael at 4 years old, dancing when he bought her chin-chin from the woman at the junction. Just 50 naira worth. Her joy had been so large it filled their small parlor, spilled into the street, made neighbors smile. 50 naira, and she'd acted like he'd given her the moon. When did 50 naira become too much? He closed the box, his throat tight. The teacher's words circled his head like vultures. Your conscience won't leave. But conscience was a luxury for men who could afford it. He had responsibilities. A business to protect. Plans that required capital, required discipline, required saying no even when yes would be easier. Especially when yes would be easier. He locked the box. Locked the shop. Stepped into the rain that soaked through his shirt within seconds. Cold water running down his spine like an omen he refused to read. But his feet didn't turn toward the hospital. They turned toward home. Toward the mango tree in the backyard. Toward the spot where red earth hid what 20 years of discipline had built, his legacy, his security, his future wrapped in plastic and buried 3 feet deep. He needed to check it. To make sure it was still there. Still safe. Still worth it. The mango tree stood where it always stood, its branches heavy with fruit no one was allowed to pick. Beneath it, the earth looked undisturbed, no footprints, no signs of digging, no evidence that anyone knew his secret. Basie knelt in the mud, rain plastering his shirt to his back, and began to dig with his bare hands. Soil packed under his fingernails, dark and wet, filling the crescents until his hands looked like they belonged to a gravedigger. Maybe they did. The plastic bag appeared 6 inches down, right where he'd left it yesterday. And the day before. And every day for 20 years. He pulled it up, cradling it like an infant, more gently than he'd held any of his actual children in months. The notes inside were dry, safe, untouched by rain or time or consequence. 6.3 million Nigerian nairas. He sat back on his heels, the bag heavy in his lap, and felt nothing. No relief. No satisfaction. Just emptiness where certainty used to live, before a teacher with angry eyes had come asking questions Basie didn't want to answer. She called for you. Even now, dying, she believes you're coming. His fingers tightened on the plastic, rain streaming down his face, into his mouth, tasting of salt and soil and something bitter he couldn't name. Michael was fine. She had to be fine. The hospital had medicine, had doctors, had that teacher's money now, 17,000 naira, enough for anything she needed. He'd been right to save. Right to plan. Right to think beyond today's hunger toward tomorrow's security. Right? Thunder cracked overhead, so loud it felt like the sky splitting open. In the distance, beyond the rain and the village and the 3 kilometers between his house and the hospital, something was ending that couldn't be restarted. But Basie kept sitting, kept holding his bag of notes, kept telling himself he'd made the right choice. He reburied the money with hands that wouldn't stop shaking. Patted the earth flat. Stood. The rain had turned savage now, wind driving it sideways, but he barely felt it. Inside the house, Judith sat in darkness, her back against the wall, her face turned toward nothing. She didn't look up when he entered, didn't acknowledge the mud trailing from his feet, didn't ask where he'd been. She already knew. The hospital sent word, she said, her voice so flat it didn't sound human anymore. An hour ago. Basie's chest tightened. Word about what? Michael. His wife's eyes finally found his, and what he saw there was worse than anger, worse than grief, it was absence. Like something vital had evacuated her body, leaving only flesh that breathed out of habit. Her breathing, they said it's getting slower. The wooden floor creaked under his weight. Outside, lightning flashed, illuminating the room for one brutal second. Judith's hollow face, the empty corner where Michael's sleeping mat used to be, the doorway that framed nothing but rain and darkness. They said, Judith's voice cracked. They said if family wants to say goodbye, now would be the time. Now. Not tomorrow. Not after he'd counted the day's earnings. Not after he'd checked the money one more time. Now. Basie's feet stayed planted to the floor, his body refusing the command his mind hadn't quite given. Go. Move. Run. But his legs had forgotten how to obey anything except the ritual of counting, the discipline of saving, the religion of not spending. Did you hear me? Judith's voice climbed higher, cracking at the edges. Our daughter is dying. Dying, Basie. I heard. His own voice sounded distant, like it belonged to someone else. I need to change. These clothes are wet, I can't go to the hospital like. She doesn't care about your clothes. Judith surged to her feet, something wild breaking loose behind her eyes. She wants her father. She's been asking for you for 4 days. 4 days, and you counted money while she... Her hand flew before either of them expected it, the slap landing across his cheek with a crack that echoed in the small room. His head snapped sideways, more from shock than force. They stood frozen, her palm still raised, his face stinging, both of them breathing hard. Go, Judith whispered, tears finally coming, hot and fast. Go now, or don't come back. He went. But his hands, instinctively, foolishly, locked the front door behind him. Even now, even rushing toward his dying daughter, his fingers remembered to protect what was inside. The hospital was 3 kilometers of mud and rain and reckoning. Basie ran, his lungs burning, his legs pumping, but every step felt like moving through water, through time that had already passed, through chances that had already expired. Ward C loomed ahead, its flickering lights making the building look like it was breathing. He burst through the doors, water pooling beneath his feet, his chest heaving. "Bed 7, he gasped to the nurse at the desk. "My daughter, Michael, I need to." The nurse's face told him everything before her mouth opened. That particular arrangement of features, pity mixed with something harder, something that judged even as it sympathized. "Sir, I'm sorry." "She." "No." The word ripped from his throat. "No, I'm here now. I came. Tell her I'm here." "Sir." He was already running, his feet slapping the cracked linoleum, past beds filled with the breathing, the recovering, the still alive. Bed 7 appeared at the end of the corridor, its curtain drawn, and for a moment, one desperate, lying moment, he let himself believe the curtain meant privacy, meant treatment, meant anything except what it actually meant. His hand trembled as he pulled the fabric aside. The bed was empty. Not empty like someone had stepped away. Empty like someone had left permanently. The sheets were folded. Crisp hospital corners, tucked tight, erasing all evidence that a small body had ever occupied this space. The four-stand stood bare, its tube coiled like a sleeping snake. Someone had even wiped down the bed frame. No fingerprints, no smudges, no proof. "Where is she?" His voice came out strangled, animal. "Where is my daughter?" The nurse appeared behind him, her hand reaching for his shoulder. He shook it off violently. "Sir, please. She passed 20 minutes ago. We moved her to." 20 minutes. The number detonated in his skull. 20 minutes. While he was locking his door. While he was running. While he was still believing he had time, still operating under the delusion that consequences waited for permission. "The morgue is downstairs. If you want to." He was moving again, stumbling toward the stairwell, his vision blurring, from rain or tears, he couldn't tell, didn't matter. Down one flight. 2. The basement smell hit him like a fist, formaldehyde and finality and the particular cold that only came from rooms designed for the no longer breathing. A metal door. A small window. Through it, he could see a table. On the table, a sheet covered something too small to be real. But it was real. It was Michael. And she would never call him Papa again. He didn't remember leaving the hospital. Didn't remember his feet finding the road, his body choosing direction. But somehow he was running again, not toward, but away, away from the small shape under white cotton, away from the nurse's pitying eyes, away from the truth that had teeth and wouldn't stop biting. Home. He needed to get home. Needed to, what? What did he need? The money. The thought arrived like salvation, like divine intervention, like the answer he'd been searching for. The money could fix this. Had to fix this. 6.3 million Nigerian nairas could buy anything. Doctors, medicine, a better hospital, a second chance, a rewind, a different ending. His hands were already digging before his knees hit the mud, clawing at the earth beneath the mango tree like a dog after bones. Soil packed under his nails, tore them back from the quick, but he didn't stop, couldn't stop, wouldn't stop. The plastic bag emerged, muddy but intact. He ripped it open, notes spilling into the rain, onto the ground, some catching wind and floating away like worthless paper, like trash, like everything they'd always been. "Take it!" He screamed at the sky, at God, at whoever was listening. "Take it all. Just give her back." The sky didn't answer. The money didn't transform. Michael stayed dead. He sat in the mud, surrounded by scattered naira notes turning to pulp in the rain, and understood, finally, devastatingly, too late, what the elders meant when they said, "When a man feeds his wealth and starves his blood, the ground will eat first." The ground had eaten. Not his money. His money sat here, recoverable, still countable despite the rain. He could gather it, dry it, rebury it, continue his 20-year plan as if nothing had changed. But Michael couldn't be gathered. Couldn't be dried. Couldn't be recovered from the earth that would soon hold her permanently. Money could be buried and dug up 1,000 times. A child, his child, only buried once. Judith found him at dawn, still sitting, still holding wet notes that had lost all meaning. She didn't speak. Didn't cry. Just stood there, a silhouette against the rising sun, looking at the man she'd married, the man who'd chosen paper over breath, numbers over name, a future that would never come over a daughter who wouldn't either. "She asked for you," Judith finally said, her voice empty as the bed in Ward C at the end. Even at the end, she believed you were coming. Basis hands opened. The last of the money fell into the mud. But it was too late for empty hands. Michael was already gone.